We're harvesting stardust and collecting constellations. That's right, it's Astra from Mind Clash Games. In this astronomical and elemental stargazing game, 2 to 5 players take on the role of astronomers, each vying to discover constellations. Over a series of rounds, they'll observe stars, gain wisdom, and acquire fame. At the end of the game, the player with the most fame wins. Setup begins by giving each player a journal and pen. Throughout the game, players will mark various tracks on their journal, filling in the leftmost unmarked spot. Each player takes 8 stardust into the pouch area of their journal, shuffle the final scoring cards, and deal 1 face down to each player, which they may peek at but should keep secret from others. Return leftover cards to the box. The player who most recently observed a shooting star takes the first player token as well. You got them in your eyes, so that'd be me. Next, select a sphere board according to the number of players in the game. The center of each board has a player count for reference. We're setting up for a 4-player game today, so we'll take the sphere board and place it near the center of the table. Then create the draw deck by shuffling the 48 constellation cards, and depending on the number of players in your game, deal a number of cards face down into a stack. 29 cards for 2 players, 25 for 3, 18 cards for 4, and 11 cards for a 5-player game. Then place the game end card on top of the stack, slightly askew. Place the remaining constellation cards on top of the game end card, face down. Draw a card from the top of the deck and place it face up nearby to form the starting discard pile. Cards have an element on their top left: fire, earth, air, or water. Place the sphere marker on the element of the sphere board matching the card in the discard pile. Then draw a number of constellation cards equal to the number of players plus 1 and place them face up in each of the triangle slots around the sphere. Finally, create a general supply of stardust and telescope tokens. Before explaining gameplay, let's check out some of the components. The player's journal has a track for fame, the main objective of the game, pouch size, which tracks the amount of stardust they gain when resting, and wisdom, the limit of constellation cards they may hold. Additionally, an area for telescope token storage and a pouch area for stardust. Constellation cards have a name, element, star shape, the number of stars within the constellation, fame points for the end game, an ability, and a set of boons. We'll get into each of these shortly, but know that the star shape contains stars with connected lines, and stars come in 3 types: the starting star, grand stars, and common stars. Gameplay occurs in turns, starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise. Turns are divided into 3 phases: ability phase, action phase, and discovery phase. First up, in the ability phase, the active player may choose to select any of the abilities on their discovered constellations and use them at this time. This step is totally optional, and multiple abilities may be activated during this step or last throughout the turn. When using this ability, the player must exhaust the card by turning it 90 degrees. Exhausted cards cannot be used until they become active through rest or another game effect. Next, in the action phase, the player chooses one of 2 options, either observe or rest. To observe, the active player must have at least 1 stardust in their pouch. When observing, the active player marks unmarked stars on the constellation cards around the sphere board, 1 per stardust spent. If a constellation has no marked stars yet, they must start with the starting star first. If any stars are already marked, they must mark a star adjacent, connected by a line, to a previously marked star. Any additional markings made with this action this turn must be adjacent to the star marked immediately before it. When marking a grand star, they gain 1 wisdom, marking it on their track. As long as they have stardust to spend, they can keep marking stars connected by lines from stars they've marked right before it. This observe action ends when they wish to stop marking or if they run out of stardust, or if they mark the last unmarked star adjacent to the one they just marked. However, they can make an additional observe action this turn by spending 1 telescope token. They can continue on the same constellation or choose a different one. When taking the rest action, the active player refills their pouch with stardust up to their pouch track size limit. Players can't exceed this limit through rest, but they can with abilities and boons. Reactivates any of their constellations whose element matches the location of their sphere marker, marking their abilities usable once again. And they move the sphere marker 1 space clockwise on the sphere board. If the marker passes over the top deck icon, discard the top card of the draw deck. Players can only take 1 rest action on their turn, unlike observe actions which can be taken multiple times with telescope tokens. Next, in the discovery phase, check to see if any constellation cards around the sphere board have been completed, as in they have all of their stars marked. If there are none, this phase is skipped. Completed constellations are considered discovered by the active player since it occurred on their turn, and they gain the card. But before they do, any other players who contributed to its discovery by marking stars on that shape first gain a boon of their choice in descending majority order. So the assisting player who marked the most stars goes first, crossing out a boon of their choice and taking the reward. That boon cannot be chosen by another player. Boons include fame awards, bonus stardust, bonus wisdom, and even card reactivation. Once all assisting players have taken their boon, the discoverer gains the card and adds it to their play area. Not a boon though, those are just for the assistants. Constellation cards start active and have an ability and fame rewards for the end game. After checking again if any other constellations are complete and thus discovered by the same process, the player must finally check their card limit on their wisdom track. If they have more constellations than in this wisdom limit, they have to discard down. Replace the acquired cards around the sphere board from the deck, and a new player's turn begins. Gameplay continues with players observing the night sky, collecting constellations, and activating special abilities. Once the Game End card appears on the top of the draw deck, the endgame is triggered. If this occurred during the first player's turn, all other players take 1 more turn, finishing the round. If it occurred during another player's turn, turns continue until it's the first player's turn again. Then every player takes 1 last turn. Discard the Game End card. If any constellations are discovered in the endgame, they're replaced with cards from the deck as usual. Players then score their fame for pouch size, as listed on their board, card limit on the wisdom track, the highest number marked, leftover stardust, 1 per set of 3, marked stars, 1 fame for every 2 stars a player has marked across all of the undiscovered constellations on the sphere board, rounding down, collected constellations fame rewards, but only on that player's unexhausted collected constellations, and elements. On the final scoring card, for each element a player has, they check a box in the corresponding row, gaining the fame listed above the rightmost space marked. In each column, they gain 3 fame for 3 markings and 6 fame for 4 markings. For example, this final scoring card starts with an air and fire box already checked. Of their constellations, they have 3 air elements, 2 earth, and 3 water. This adds up to 11 points in the air row, 2 in earth, 0 in fire, and 6 in water. The first column has 6 points for all 4 markings, and the second column has 3 points for 3 markings, for a total of 28 points. Not too bad. And that's the basics of Astra. The 2-player variant rules add in a Dreamer Pen, which marks stars out whenever a player takes a rest action. See page 20 of the rules for those details. I'm Becca Scott, this is Good Time Society, and you have been a diligent observer. Well watched. Be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and come on back for more great games and good times. We'll see you later.